I ask regular Earth people all the time, would you see like the hobo living under the bridge? Do you want to go give that guy a hug? Do you want to have physical contact with that guy? No, I would. Oh, that's gross.
Rarely do I have that thought, Chuck.
So if you have
not at my age,
if you have a tool that you can utilize physical force, non-lethal, at a distance and avoid physical contact and not have to go to lethal force because you interdicted the fight before it could get escalated, why would you not?
How did you come to embrace pepper spray? Like, how did that become a main part of your teaching? How did you become an expert on that? Like, what was the catalyst there?
So it was about 1989, and it's been a while. So, 88, 89, 90, somewhere in there. What cops had was basically you had a big stick, you had fists. Some places had saps and blackjacks, and the idea was, this is putting on my community policing hat as far as like community outreach. The word de-escalation in a lot of areas right now, the way it's used, the way it's misused, gives a sour taste to people's mouths. Like everybody thinks de-escalation is endlessly talk nice, give people a hug and a butt.
That does sound nice.
But that's not true. De-escalation is not. I often tell people a correct, competent use of force early at a low level will often save you from having to use more force later to dig your way out of a hole.
So what's an example? Like what's an example of de-escalation that people would not normally think of? Like, give me like a real world example.
So, because you guys can pull up videos and things like that, and people can look it up. When I was teaching recruit officers, I would pull up the video of Deputy Kyle Dinkheller, Dinkhleer. And if you've seen the video, it's a car camera video of the deputy makes a car stop. It's a white pickup truck. The gentleman comes out. He asks the guy to take his hands out of his pockets. The guy's F you, blah, 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 blah. It turns into a physical confrontation. Eventually, the guy goes back to the truck, gets a M1 carbine out of the truck, loads it, turns into a running gun battle, and the deputy ends up dead.
Jeez.
So, and dies. It's horrible. You can hear the deputy screaming as he's being shot. He was shot like 13 times. You can pull it up on YouTube, Wikipedia, whatever. So that's an example.
Wait. Where does the de-escalation? Where did the de-escalation come in?
I'm getting
You're
to
getting
that.
there. Okay,
So
gotcha. All right.
At one point, the guy physically confronts the deputy, and the deputy doesn't do anything effectively. So in that video, when I see cops watching it, the first time when it first came out, you see the guy go back to the truck. He's digging the gun out from behind the seat. He's loading the magazine, and everybody's asked, well, why isn't he shooting the guy? Why didn't he shoot? He's got a rifle. He's loading the rifle. He's standing there. Why aren't you shooting the guy? Why aren't you shooting the guy? And I was like, that's the wrong question. Why didn't he apply physical force effectively early? He could have legally, morally, ethically. Tasers didn't exist then. Could have tasered him. Could have pepper sprayed him. The deputy was a big kid. I think, if memory serves, like 6'5", 6'6", 275. So let's say he didn't have any training, but he's a big guy with a mindset. Could he have punched a dude in the face, wrap him up in a bear hug, drop him in the ditch, and sit on him till help arrives? All the above. So at several points in that encounter, he had the opportunity to competently use effective force early at a low level and not allow it to degenerate into a gunfight.
Gotcha.
So more recent example would be, remember when we had all the riots and stuff 3-4 years ago? Remember Atlanta, where they had the incident of the drunk driver at the Wendy's? They do the DUI stop. The two officers kind of mamby-pamby. They're trying to get him into cuffs. It turns into a fist fight. Drunk guys don't want to go to jail, weirdly enough. So it turns into a fist fight, and the officer utilizes the taser ineffectively. When you do that ineffectively, it causes pain to the person without incapacitation. that causes adrenaline stress to rise. When you get adrenaline, you get enkephalins and endorphins, which are natural painkillers that your body makes. So they're escalating the suspect's fight or flight response by an incompetent use of force. By the time the whole thing's over with, we have one cop with a concussion, we have one cop disarmed of his taser, and we have a fatal shooting that never should have happened. So at the correct time, assuming legal, moral, ethical, at the correct time, a competent use of force is de-escalation. How do we apply that to the non-cop world? We look at the sad case of George Zimmerman. At some point before it turned into a ground fight and then eventually a fatal shooting, and we know George Zimmerman, he prevailed at trial, but at what cost?
Everything. He lost everything.
The dirty little secret
life.
in the prosecutor world is, even if they think they can't win the case, they will often push the case forward because the expression is the process is the punishment.
Oh, wow.
So they could have won the case and he went to prison, but even if they don't win the case and send him to prison, now he's $500,000 into legal fees, lost his house, lost his job, ruined his life. So the process is the punishment. What should we endeavor to do? Don't go through the process. So at some point in that encounter, let's say George Zimmerman had some street tactic skills, things what I call muck. I get the term from a friend of mine, Craig Douglas, managing unknown contacts. He had tried to verbally de-escalate, pulled OC, sprayed Trayvon Martin, backed off, called 911. If that had played out, what are the odds that we would have ever heard of George Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin?
Wouldn't even have hit the news. And
If you heard something on the news, confrontation happened on the street, dude pepper sprayed another dude, you'd be like, who cares, right? That sound okay. So that would be a case where the correct use of force at the correct time is a de-escalation. In the law enforcement world, what we were trying to do was pepper spray basically is a weaponized food condiment. It very effectively works on people, depending on what status of training, what product is chosen, about 80 to 90% of the time. So, the Anchorman expression, 60% of the time it works every time. Yeah. Well, if 9 out of 10 times it works every time and you don't have to go to a higher level of force. What my agency found, because I was one of the first 10 officers to get it, and we had this test program, we put it on the street, and then we had to do this report to gauge the effectiveness. And we found out really quickly, hey, we're not having to go hands-on and fight people. I know we're on the radio, but if you see me walking around, this arm doesn't go straight anymore. Elbow's all busted up. That's what happens when you tackle people and do jujitsu in the real world. You don't have a mat.
You can't bring a mat around with you.
Yeah,
you imagine that? Just
weirdly enough. Think what a lot of people are into jujitsu, but how into jujitsu would they be if they had to do it on the concrete every time they did it?
Yeah. Doesn't sound fun.
So in my experience, people all the time are, why'd the cop do that? Why didn't they just, grab them, whatever? In a physical confrontation on the street, everybody gets hurt. I've had people get scraped up because I had to fight them on the concrete. Now they're bleeding on me, and I find out they're Hep B positive.
Jeez.
So now I've been exposed to hepatitis, go to the hospital, prophylaxis medicines. I'm waiting the next 6 months to see if my blood work is going to come out negative. Yeah, there's no upside to that. So what we found was pepper spray a dude, and it does what one of my mentors calls takes the fight out of the fighter. Now we muscle him into cuffs. He goes to jail. He gets washed off. We go do reports. We found it dropped suspects going to the emergency room 80, 90%.
Wow.
Officers having to file work comp claims for work injuries also dropped at about that rate. So it's physically easier on the suspect. The medical implications of a use of force are part of the quote level of force. Why are guns deadly force? Because when you shoot holes in people, it's likely to cause death and or great bodily harm. And even the people that don't know anything about guns, we've all seen the situations of, well, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Because one of two outcomes happens. It either doesn't work at all because it's literally but a flesh wound, poke a hole in the muscle and nobody cares, or you hit the femoral artery, or you hit the femur, you break the femur, it bleeds a lot and it's jagged and cuts things up. You may have crippled somebody for life. They may bleed to death in the next 30 seconds. You can't just shoot somebody in the leg. It's still deadly force, right? So that's the medical implications of the use of force. What's the medical implications of application of OC?
Almost nothing.
You make them feel bad.
Yeah.
It causes a sensation of
You make
heat.
them feel like they want to die.
It causes, I joke commonly, it causes pain. It causes a sensation of pain. It causes a sensation of heat. It activates those nerves, but doesn't actually cause burning or tissue damage or injury. So it literally hurts your feelings is what it comes down to. That's medically a very low level of force. It's demonstrably non-lethal, not lawyer language in the police world, like impact munitions from shotguns. Remember when beanbags first came out?
Yeah.
They were calling them non-lethal. And then every once in a while you hit somebody, like they try to duck, you hit them in the throat, the guy dies. Well, the company started calling that less lethal. We didn't say it was non-lethal. It's less lethal. So
Less lethal, which is kind of a funny.
less lethal than what?
Well, less lethal. It's like someone is kind of pregnant. Like it's either, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, arguably,
it's either lethal or it's not lethal. I get what they're trying to say.
arguably a beanbag is less lethal than just using buckshot, which is correct.
Yes.
But we didn't tell you it was non-lethal. Well, OC spray is demonstrably non-lethal. It's not only not likely to cause death or great bodily harm, it's not likely to cause any injury whatsoever. The Canadian cops are a lot better at putting science to this, and I've seen a study from the Calgary Police Service that showed the absolute safest thing that a police officer could do as a use of force against a resisting suspect was pepper spray. Shockingly enough, doesn't shock me any or any jiu-jitsu people. The next safest thing you could do is neck restraints, like a lateral vascular neck restraint, or in what in jiu-jitsu is called a rear naked choke, but it's neither naked nor a choke. So I don't know where the term came from. But at any rate, that's the next safest thing you could do. When you actually put science to this and you look at the stats and the numbers, you get reality. So in my time on the street, conservative estimate, because we had a lot of crime.
What is, just before you go over, what is a rear naked choke? Is you just have your arm around the guy's neck?
Yeah, so you're putting compression on the sides. If you look in jiu-jitsu, it's called a rear naked choke. In wrestling, they call it a sleeper hold. Formalized version of that from Kansas City, an organization that I teach for, National Law Enforcement Training Center, has a formalized version of that, lateral vascular neck restraint. What you do is avoid the windpipe. You don't put any pressure on the windpipe. You put pressure on the side of the neck. It's a myth that you cut off the carotids. That's impossible. It's physically impossible to overcome. It's like if you step on your garden hose, does it turn off your garden hose? No, it just slows it down a little bit. But it also basically massages the vagal nerves, which lowers blood pressure, which causes people to faint. If you ever seen, how many of us have watched MMA, UFC, things like that? Sure. How many times has a quote unquote choke ended that match? Like one dude gets the other guy, gets his hooks in and gets an arm around the neck, and you see the guy take a nap. We've all seen that.
Yeah,
right?
not uncommon.
It's actually super common in that venue, correct?
Yes.
How many of those guys die?
None.
None
or
of
almost
them
none.
that I know of.
Yeah. Because, and even with nobody coaching you to, hey, you're going to have to use reasonable force and put the guy into custody and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
These dudes are just fighting, right? It's straight up fight, no holds barred, is what it is. What's the safety factor in that venue?
What's the safety factor? Meaning,
how many people are dying in the middle of these tournaments?
like none of them.
Like none.
Yeah.
So that's an example of what I'm talking about. When you look at the reality of reasonable use of force, things that are effective and safe, that would be an example. But
So maybe it's not the neck restraint that in and of itself is the bad thing, but there was this public perception because people are on drugs or whatever else is happening, and for some reason they do die in police custody. You're saying it's arguably not because of the neck restraint.
correlation does
It's
not equal causation.
because of overdose or heart attack or some other thing happening.
Yeah, in SoCal in the 80s, it was like LAPD famously lost neck restraints in the 80s because they would look at, they had to fight, this guy was buck naked, sweating, howling like a werewolf, jumping through plate glass windows. The cops show up, they're fighting the guy. It's on like Donkey Kong. Eventually, they put a neck restraint on him. They get him into custody, and then at some point, he passes away. And oh my God, what's the last thing the cops did? Well, they did the neck restraint. Oh, we got to stop doing that because it's killing people. What we know now is the phenomenon of excited delirium was what was killing people. What hit California in the 80s? Crack cocaine. Crack cocaine causes a form of excited delirium known as cocaine-induced psychosis. It's incredibly common. One of the things involved in cocaine-induced psychosis is hypothermia. So
Really? What? I wonder why that is. Can you talk more about that? That's kind of interesting.
So if I didn't pronounce it, hyperthermia. I want to emphasize that part. So tell me what the cops did to the guy when you find out that he had a body temperature of 112 degrees.
Man, geez.
That's clearly something in his system.
Yeah.
What happens in an excited delirium is their metabolism gets away from them. It's fight or flight response, maxed out, turbo. They're running around, figuratively speaking, 100 miles an hour with their hair on fire. I've seen cases in the literature, some of the medical nerd literature, where they've had people post-mortem. So they're dead and they're in a morgue and they're getting the liver temperature and they're still like 108. Well, what were they before they died?
108. Seriously, 108? So when you said 112, you weren't exaggerating?
Not in the least.
Oh my gosh. Like
We had one.
fry your brain.
We had one, thankfully for my old department, yeah, exactly. How many of us have kids in the room?
I have none.
So
that I know of. None that I know of.
How old are your kids?
18 up to 28.
So remember when they were babies?
Yeah.
Let's say they were 4 years old. If one of them woke up crying in the middle of the night, you took the temp and they were 103. What are you doing?
Emergency.
It's
As a first-time mom, probably the
emergency room,
yeah.
right?
But then you get to kid 3 and 4.
Yeah, I'm aware. I've
Or
got two daughters myself, but we know 104, 105. You're starting to get into brain damage territory. So one of my friends is a paramedic in where I used to work, and thankfully nobody in my old job was involved. But they had a call of a guy running around naked, howling at the moon, doing all the stuff that people do when they're in this state. Well, by the time the police got there and the paramedics got there, the guy had already like passed out. He had maxed out his metabolism and had basically passed out. And you know, they're so popular now, the little temp guns that, remember during COVID, we kept getting shot in the forehead with the little temperature gun, right?
Go into a restaurant, before you go into a Denny's. Ridiculous.
So she tried to get a quick temp because nobody wants to touch the sweaty naked guy, right? She got a quick temp on him and the gun said high. It didn't give the number. It said high. So she's like, wow, our temperature gun has got, something's wrong with it.
Maxed out the gun? Jeez.
She checked with the manufacturer and said, oh yeah, that's the reading it gives when it's above 114.
Oh my gosh. You know, I had, back when I was 14 years old, I had pneumonia really bad. And really bad. Like I had to go to the hospital. I was out of school for like a month. And I remember I had a fever in the 100, before I was diagnosed, I had a fever in the 100 and like low one, like 103.1 or something like that, but low 103s. And I remember being disoriented. Like it was, you know, almost confusion. So I mean, 108, 110, 114 is crazy. And little,
it's irrecoverable,
and very. It's not hyperbole to say that's fatal. That's like you could die. You could have permanent brain damage. That's insane.
Absolutely.
I had no idea. I knew that it caused your body temp to rise. I had no idea it was that extreme. That's crazy.
One of the first significant cases I ran into on the street, I showed up on a call, and it was on one of our local campus. And when I pulled up, I was greeted with a guy standing on top of buck naked on top of the campus security car, jumping up and down on the car. Our police helicopter was overhead with the night sun, the big spotlight lighting up the scene, and this guy's jumping up and down. And at first I thought, he's jumping up and down on the roof of the car trying to cave in the roof of the security car. And then I realized he's jumping trying to get air, like he's reaching up. And I realized he's trying to grab the helicopter.
We've all been there, Chuck.
The helicopter's at 800 feet. They're in very low orbit. But why is he trying to grab the helicopter?
And why are all these guys? Why does crack make you want to get naked? Why are all these people naked?
Because they get hot.
It's the
Alicia, you got any insight on that?
It's the hyperthermia.
Yeah.
There you go. They're so hot.
They're
like,
so hot they start shedding clothes in an unconscious attempt to save themselves. But this guy, how out of touch with reality? We've all heard stories like in the 60s, PCP, some dude thought they could fly, they jump off a roof. So they think they can fly, so they try to do it, and we know it doesn't work. This guy was jumping in the air trying to grab a helicopter.
Yeah. Jeez.
Why? Because he thinks he can.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was immediately apparent to me was he's buck naked and sweat was rolling off this dude. And I mean, like he's jumping rope in the sauna. It's pouring off of him. He's buck naked. It's 10 below zero.
Wow.
He has enough body temperature. He's sweating 10 below zero. I believe that the ambient temperature saved his life. His body temperature couldn't get past the cook your brain. We got him into custody, stuffed him in the ambulance. He went to the emergency room, then up to the psych ward. But I think the flip side of that is, or the like where we didn't get the straw that broke the camel's back in that case was it was too cold for it to end up fatal for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas in a lot of you guys don't have 10 below zero here.
No.
So how many of these guys was LA fighting and it's, 80, 90, 100 degrees, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
So there were a lot of in custody deaths, basically. And your point earlier, kind of to go back to the de-escalation thing, was that some of the de-escalation tactics that were available had been taken away from departments due to policy changes.
Yes.
This conversation kind of started asking you about how did you get into OC? And we talked about, it was a very effective way to stop people without injuring them. And it was successful in also reducing law enforcement injuries.
Yes.
But then kind of go back and talk a little bit more about like the rest of your career. So you talked about how you got into law enforcement a little bit, OC, and then what are you doing now?
So I ended up in the civilian training world accidentally. The vast majority of what I've been doing was police and military because that's just what I did. And a lot of it was in agency. We had a regional academy. Our department was large enough to have an academy that was regionally accredited for our state as an alternative to the state academy. And I was teaching in that venue, was a train the trainer level of instructor for National Law Enforcement Training Center out of Kansas City. They're partnered with Kansas City Police Department. So all I did was classes at the train the trainer level so that instructors could go back to their departments, teach their own people. So I was teaching pepper spray batons, handcuffing, ground control. What you think of as like, some kind of grappling jiu-jitsu stuff, firearms. I was a SWAT guy for 18 years on a very busy SWAT team. I did verbal judo, verbal de-escalation. And then towards the end of my career, Tom Givens asked me to be an instructor for his Rangemaster Tactical Conference. The first time I taught was in Memphis when he still had that facility. And that's the vast majority of the people attending that conference are CCW people. What Pat Rogers was one of my mentors. He called average Earth people. Not military special operations or whatever. Yeah. And I started really enjoying that training and doing that. And that branched into other conferences like Dakota knows I teach at the annual A Girl and a Gun conference, which I really, really enjoy.
What do you like? So, what do you like about? Is it that they're civilians? That part you like, or you like the curriculum, or both?
The enthusiasm and the mindset and things like that. So
Yeah.
when I go to the Girl in a Gun conference, everybody's jazzed up to be there and they're excited and they want to train and they if you do a good job, they're like, thanks a lot, and I love this and I want to get more. There's nothing more soul sucking than to have to teach an in-service class and deal with, let's say, day shift detectives who want to bitch about getting paid to shoot free ammo on a warm spring day. It's if I never have to teach another police in-service class the rest of my life, I'll be very, very happy. The difference in having to figuratively twist arms to get people to train to a high level just gets old.
Does it get old? Okay, so what class are you here to teach in San Diego? What class specifically are you teaching?
Classes.
I am doing
Classes.
I'm doing a low light class, so
Nice.
integrating white light and handguns this evening. Tomorrow, I'm doing a class that Dakota asked me to do, which is I call street encounter skills, and some of this will be proxemics, managing the unknown contact, recognizing pre-assault indicators, some use of less than lethal force. So we're gonna talk about pepper spray deployment and where that would come into the equation, and then also some handgun skills that would be pertinent to CCW people.
Gotcha.
And then the Sunday will be my close quarter handgun class, which covers 7 yards and in. And most people shoot, when they go to the range, they shoot from full extension,
Right.
position 4, what you would think of as either Weaver or isosceles, what you typically see in matches and on the range. A lot of the encounters we have are at ranges where somebody can put a hand on your gun. And we don't often train for that contact and near contact distance. So that class covers that. It also covers Rule 4, know your target, what's in between you and the target, what's beyond it. Now, at the range, what do we got to have? Okay, my target's lined up with the backstop. Nobody's downrange or pairing a target. I'm good to go. I shoot. If you're on the Walmart parking lot,
Whole new world, whole different world.
exactly. How many? It's different than an IDPA match. If you go to an IDPA match, you might have like 3 no shoots and 15 shoots as part of that match course. How many no shoots do you have on a Walmart parking lot?
Everything,
Yeah.
but like one.
Yes. So what I talk about is another one of my friends, Claude Werner, the tactical professor, who, if you don't follow him, you should, talks about it's one of the few true researchers in this business. He looked at a ton of in the American Rifleman magazine where they do the grandma shoots a burglar stories and all that. They have them every month. He took a whole ton of those and he put numbers to them, and he found it's often between 40 and 50% of these involve what he calls a downrange problem. An example would be somebody knocks at the door, husband goes to the door, the dude's got a knife, there's a fight in the door, the wife has to grab the handgun to save her husband. That's a shockingly common type event. So what does she have to deal with? She has to shoot past her husband or the bad guys in front of or just behind the person, your loved one that you don't want to hit. So the Sunday class will talk about how do you not only hit what you're supposed to hit and don't endanger bystanders and things like that.
Nice.
So
That's awesome.
That's a class that I've done for a number of years. It's been pretty popular.
I really do think that sounds great. That curriculum sounds extremely real world and useful, which I think we need more of. Now, Dakota, you're responsible for getting them here, right? You invited them. What was the thought process? What was the catalyst? How come you wanted Chuck to come in and teach that curriculum?
Yeah, I've trained with Chuck a couple of times. So he mentioned a Girl in a Gun National Conference, but there's also TACCon, which is the Range Master National Conference they have out in Dallas. And then he's been out to San Diego and up to LA before. And so I've taken classes from him pretty much anytime he's on this West Coast southern side of the country. And yeah, there's a lot of what I consider more like tactical cool guy training out there where you just show up and you try to look cool and you take videos for your Instagram. And that's not necessarily what I want, my girls in the San Diego chapter and what I want this community to have. I want them to have real world skills that maybe aren't as fun or as cool looking to train, but are way more likely, way more common. There's definitely a place for like competitive shooting training, and I'm not against that at all. I bring out competitive instructors as well. But when we're thinking about actual concealed carry skills and what are the things that I could get myself into and have to have the skills for, I don't want that to be the first time one of my girls is ever shooting from a position of retention, is when somebody is trying to get her gun out of her hand. That is not setting her up for success in that encounter. And so I think for me, I always look at trainers and curriculums through the lens of what are the students taking away from this, and can it help them prevail on the worst day of their life? And I think Chuck's one of the guys in this industry who's doing it really, really well and has a fantastic concealed carry curriculum that focuses on some of that de-escalation stuff that so many instructors don't want to talk about at all. I can't tell you how many classes, concealed carry type classes I've taken where the entire curriculum is focused on shooting.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot.
Why would I want to shoot somebody if I've got 7 other options between the encounter starting and the shooting? Why am I going to put myself through the legal issues and all the other, mental, emotional, all that stuff when I had other choices that these instructors just don't want to bring up? So the pepper spray piece of his curriculum is so great. I know, and I'm sure you see this in the cop world too. I know so many cops and instructors who are anti pepper spray, or who say things like, oh, I've seen pepper spray not work. And so there's a lot of myths to beat in that as well. And a lot of, people saying, oh, the wind's going to blow back, it's going to get you, and then you're going to be, worse of a victim. You're going to be worse off after the blowback.
Grossly overstated.
It's insane how many myths there are around pepper spray. And so people often, even like for my local CCW classes, they come in and I mention pepper spray and they're like, oh, my husband said that's a bad idea. Or my cop friend told me that, everyone gets sprayed in a pepper spray fight and that's no fun and whatever. And so I loved that Chuck was like, not only do I have the experience as a cop, not only do I have the real world experience of spraying hundreds, thousands, however.
I conservatively estimate, I don't think I completed that thought, but somewhere between 300 and 400 bad guys in real world street encounters over, because we got it very early in my career, and we were told what they wanted to do was lower the level of force. So don't jump on them. Now you're in a grapple fight, everybody's hurt, and then use it. We were taught if you have probable cause to believe they have physically resisted or would physically resist, like you tell them, hey, turn around, you got to put your hands behind your back. Well, you got warrant for your arrest. We're going to have to go downtown. And they're like, F you, ball up their fist, and they're going to fight. Spray them first. Take the fight out of the fighter. I've done that somewhere between 300 and 400 times, and it works pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I can avoid getting Hep B on me and all the other drama. Why would I ask regular Earth people all the time, would you see like the hobo living under the bridge? Do you want to go give that guy a hug? Do you want to have physical contact with that guy? No, I would. Oh, that's gross.
Rarely do I have that thought, Chuck.
So if you have
not at my age,
if you have a tool that you can utilize physical force, non-lethal at a distance, and avoid physical contact and not have to go to lethal force because you interdicted the fight before it could escalate, why would you not?
Yeah. If you liked that segment, be sure to give us a like, a comment, and go to youtube.com/gunownersradio and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to share us with a friend. Every view counts.